guys, welcome to the first video lesson for Group Piano 4. This is the final lap in the group piano sequence. So a lot of things are going to be very similar to last semester in terms of what I'm going to be going over on each video, just going over the assignment, the content from each unit, and I'll be just talking through some basic tips, suggestions. As always, again, I won't go into just glaring detail with everything. And if there's something that is missing from this video that you would find helpful in your practice, please let me know. I'm happy to provide any resource that you think would be helpful. If you want to hear the left hand of something at 80 beats per minute with finger numbers said out loud, I can do that easily. So I would definitely encourage you guys to use these videos as sort of a first step for figuring out how you're going to complete your assignment. It's definitely something that I'm putting together, and I would encourage you to watch this before you ask questions, So again, obviously if you have like a question that's not answered on the video, that's fine. But I would encourage you to watch this before you have other in-depth questions about the assignment details, because I am going over them here. And it also kind of gives you a little bit of accountability to make sure that when you're playing your assignments that, things are going pretty well and that, you're following the directions, because that's going to be how I demonstrate everything here. So kind of gives you a little bit, you don't really have an out for it's like, oh, I just misunderstood what I was supposed to do, because I played it on the video. So you should pretty much have an idea what you're supposed to do. But these are meant to be helpful for you, and just even a resource for you after you are finished with the class to go back and review any content. Like I said last semester, while there are, specific things that are on the assignments, we're not going to get through everything in every unit for your weekly assignments. So I would encourage you to practice, this extra content, whenever you have time. It's a really, really good idea, and it's definitely going to help you. Some things that are going to be just a teensy bit different from last semester might be sort of some of the nature of some of the assignments, just because we're trying to focus a little bit more now on moving ahead and looking towards your future careers and the future needs that you will have with piano. How are your piano skills going to support your journey as a high school band director, or a middle school choir director, or a college clarinet professor, or a chemist who really loves the banjo, or whatever it is. But we want to make sure that we're looking in the future to see what kinds of things are going to be helpful for you. So one exercise that we're going to go ahead and start out with right away is the vocal warm-up that's on the page of bottom of page 193. So that's in Unit 14, which is our unit for this week. And so we're going to do half of the keys this week and half of them next week. And basically the way that you do this exercise is very simple. Again, this will be really helpful for those of you who are in the vocal area. The right hand is very simple. It's just a major 5-finger pattern, and we're going up chromatically. That's it. The left hand is playing the 1 chord, 5 chord, 1. And then we do a modulation. And the way that we do the modulation is we play the 5-7 chord of the next key. So here I'm playing the 5-7 chord of D flat. So this would be in A 6-5 or A flat 6-5. So it's just playing the 5-7 chord that precedes the next key that you're going to be going up to. And we're just going to continue that pattern starting on C and going up to F sharp for this week. The other way that you can think about the modulation chord, finding it, is to think about your 1 chord. You're going to leave your pinky where it is. You're going to take your thumb up a half step, and you're going to bring your finger 2 down a whole step from where your thumb is. And just going from there. So either way that you think about that will be pretty easy. So I'm just going to go ahead and play this through, starting on C, and we'll stop on F sharp. All right? Here we go. C, 5, 1, modulation. Flat, 5, 1, modulation, D, 5, 1, modulation, E flat, 5, 1, modulation, E, 5, So we will go ahead and now jump over to the rest of the content that we'll have in this unit. So flipping back to the beginning here, this is a perfect timing because we are talking about modulating to the dominant in this unit. So that's going to kind of be featured in our harmonizations, reading exercises, solo rep, etc. So on page 184, we have a chord progression that shows a modulation to the dominant using a pivot chord where the 6/6 chord in the key of C becomes the 2/6 chord in the key of G. So if we play through this one, here's how we would go. We'd have our 1 chord, 5/7, 1, 6/6 pivot to 2/6, 1/6/4, 5/7, 1. And we have a kitten who is meowing. So this would be a really helpful chord progression to go through and try in your other keys. So your G major, F major, D major, B flat. And if you can do that, that'll be really helpful for the harmonizations that we'll have coming up and any of those other exercises that utilize that, that modulation approach. So we also have over on page 185 some technique exercises. These are just kind of similar to, you know, some very basic etudes like Hanon or something. Very similar to just those basic classic warm-up activities. These are good for developing facility on the keys. So if you were to practice these exercises number 1 and 2 on page 185, the key here is to really keep fingers really curved. And get a nice bounce on those staccato notes. Let me just handle this kitten really quick. Hey girl, what's up? I know. It's a stressful time. How about I throw this one? Okay, there you go. Play with that. Okay, and so then number 3 at the bottom here is more for developing kind of accuracy with leaps. So these again, a really good thing to do with these is to try to play with good arm weight to really get a nice powerful sound very easily without having to press into the keys. And it also is, you know, again, the faster you can do these and finding those first notes accurately, finding each chord accurately will be really good for navigating any leaps or jumps in future repertoire. So we have now the solo rep, Bagatelle by Diabelli. So one thing that's really important to notice is that both hands are in treble clef for the A section and then the return of the A section at the end. So you move down to your left hand in bass clef for the sort of middle section, the B section, starting in measure 17. And with this one, the left hand is basically just playing these really simple intervals. Notice through those whole first 3 measures that C stayed there. So you want to keep a really curved pinky through that section. And then we also have very traditional phrasing here. You know, if you notice, the first 8 measures are almost identical to the next 8 measures, which are almost identical to the last 8 measures. So that is really, really helpful. And then same thing, even if we look into the B section, those first 4 measures are very similar to those last 4. So again, if you were to practice this one for the first exam, you want to definitely practice the unique material. So if you play the first 8 measures, you don't really, you know, again, don't waste a bunch of time playing through, you know, this first page and a line a bunch of times when you can really just practice those 2 lines. So, you know, a little bit of practicing smarter, not harder. To make this very artistic and beautiful, you're going to want to emphasize the difference between the staccatos and legato. also get those nice dynamics in there. So I'll go ahead and play this one through from the beginning. If you're to practice this one, definitely hand separately first, and also do pay attention to the good finger numbers that they have written here. Now, let me turn on I got a fancy new piano light. Wow. Okay, here we go. And I won't do the repeats just for this demonstration. So we'll go ahead and move on. And so for this week's assignment, you will do one of these 3 reading exercises on pages 188 through 189. No transposition on these. So I'll just play each of them through, and then you'll choose one of these to perform for your video. So here's number 1. So we can see this is an example of very clearly having that modulation to the dominant there at the end. This would be a great one. Again, if you want to do transpositions for these, it would definitely be helpful. One of my best tips is that if you have a hard time transposing the harmonizations, practice by transposing the reading exercises where all of the parts are already written in for you. It is easier, but it will definitely help prepare you for doing the harmonizations and transposing those. So here is excerpt from the Sonatina in C major, number 2 reading exercise. Very simple. With this one, make sure that you just look out for that bass line. It's a little bit leapy there at the end, and if you can, try to do that bass line without looking at your left hand. That will be really make it a lot easier for you. And here is dance, number 3. Again, a nice clean little modulation there at the end. And so the next exercise that you, or the next activity that you have for your video assignment is to complete this improvisation in Baroque style. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, this thing sounds a little bit weird. So if you wanna change up a little bit of the left hand, that is okay with me. So basically what you're going to do with this one is they have provided the bass line, and again, if you want to adjust the bass line a little bit, that is totally fine. They have a little intro melody. Whatever, you go on from there, and they just have the little left hand part. I think that the beginning of that just doesn't sound great. So if you want to change it up by all means. Why are we having you do this exercise? Well, because being able to improvise something very simple like this, like just a quick melody over the left hand part, is an excellent skill. First, for kind of your knowledge of music theory and ear training, to be able to just hear easily, this note goes with this note. This kind of goes along with this. That's really helpful. And also being able to just quickly and easily come up with a simple melody to go along with something. That's a really great skill for, again, those of you who are accompanying, or if you're working in any setting. There are a lot of musical settings that involve, people asking you to just improvise something really, really quick on the piano. If you ever want to have like a church job or something like that, that can be just a really helpful skill to have. And hopefully, maybe it's like a little bit fun to get to come up with something. You can make it super creative. You can do like ornaments all over the place, If you want to, you can do whatever you want to kind of make it exciting. And again, if you want to change up some things in this, that's great. So basically what you'll do for your assignment is, I don't care if you write in a melody in the blank spaces provided. You can, but you do not have to. And so I just want you to play what you come up with. And that's it. So just make a video of you playing what you come up with. And again, you can feel free to change things up a little bit, depending on if you want to adjust the left hand, if you want to adjust the beginning, whatever you feel like doing. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on over to the harmonization option. So we have 2 harmonizations, and you'll choose one of them to do with the transposition. So I'm just going to demonstrate one of them, but I'll kind of go in a little bit more depth with the process that I would use. So I'm going to do the harmonization number 1 at the top with the pop chord symbols listed. Again, you could easily do We Three Kings and just fill in the chord names and follow these same steps that I'm going to provide. So here is how I would do it first. I would go through and I would play the chords in the original key first. So let's go ahead and do that. You can use the accompaniment pattern that they suggest right out of the gate, or you can just kind of block through the chords. So I've got my F chord. And then I've got a G7 chord over F. And remember that even though we have B flats in our key signature, that does not change the fact that it says it's a G7 chord, so that means it's going to be a major chord. So we have that G7 over F, and then a C7 over E. Remember the B flat there, we will have a B flat. Then we have F, C7 in root position, back to F. Now we have a C, D, 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 D7, so there will be an F sharp in the middle, and then G7 over B, C, G7 over B, C7, and then we go back to the beginning. So, and we'll do the da capo, but we won't worry about that for right now. Then I would go through and I'd play the melody. And then again, we'll go back and we'll do the da capo. So now that I've run through that and I feel confident with both, you could practice it numerous times, I'll play both hands together and with the broken chord accompaniment pattern. So here we go, and the da capo at the end. There we go. So having a solid foundation in the original key is really important. For now, moving on to doing the transposition. So I'm going to be moving a step up to G major. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to do the chords. And one way that I really suggest to think about this in the beginning is just don't let yourself play the chords wrong at any point. Your muscle memory starts right now. And muscle memory is such an important part of our short-term learning. We're not doing this piece over a course of like 6 months and memorizing it and all that kind of stuff. So that short-term muscle memory is going to help you through those quick little chord changes and everything. So just don't let yourself play it wrong. Don't let yourself do it. Take as much time as you need to figure out what the chord is supposed to be so that you always play it right, so that you're building always in the right direction. And that's really going to help you. So first chord, pretty easy out the gate. It's going to be G. Now I look at the next one. Now there's a couple of ways that you can think about this. You can think about just everything going up by a step. But again, I kind of like to think about, what is the, what's the Roman numeral also. So for this one, this is going to be an A7 over G. And then we're going to C7 over E. So that's very clearly our 5-6-5 chord. Then we have D7, and then G. So you could even practice that a couple times. There we go. So now I'm going to go to the middle section here. So I'm starting on now D. So I can think about it just being one step up from the chord that's written down, or thinking about the Roman numerals, that's going to be the 5. So we're going to be on D. And now it's going to be an E7 over D. And then we're going down to G7 over B. So that needs to be an A7 over C sharp. It would probably make more sense to do it down here. D. To D7 and back to the beginning. So again, go ahead and just run through that second half one more time. Now we'll run over the melody in the key of G. So be careful here with the, I don't think that you're going to have to change too much with like the sharps and flats and everything, but take a look out for that in the bottom line where we have that B natural. That B natural is going to become a C sharp. So let's start from the beginning. There we go. So now I'm going to put both hands together. I'm not even going to go that fast. However fast I played it hands separately, I'm going to probably want to slow it down a little bit when I start putting it hands together. So, and again, and if you make a little mistake or something, it's okay. I might make a mistake while I'm doing this. This stuff is not super easy. It's not super hard, but it's hard to get it 100% right, every single time in just one take. So it is okay if you make a little mistake, just start over. And again, keep your mind on the chords and the intervals of the melody, and it'll make it a lot easier. So here we go. See, I made a mistake. you work through all of those steps, it really does, first of all, give you a better final product. And it also is going to actually save you time. So if you put in a little bit of that groundwork to make sure that your chords are solid, to make sure that your melody is solid, it's going to be a lot easier, and the transposition, than just sitting down and doing take after take after take, trying to get something that's passable and then eventually being like, well, this one's going to have to do. So, this maybe takes 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes, depending on how long you need to go through and do it. But it's going to make it a lot easier, and it is going to save you time. I know it can seem like just forcing yourself to do the whole thing put all together is the easiest way. Probably isn't. There's probably an easier way to do that, and the easier way is to just go through and practice it a couple times, and that will really help. So we're going to skip Glory to God because you did that for the final exam in 2610, and you're a little bit traumatized from it, so we just won't even worry about it. But we will go over and do the Pilgrim's Chorus, which is in the viola clef, also known as alto clef, and we will have a bunch of these, and I will be sure to bring some viola jokes to the next video because there are just a lot of good ones. So here we go, playing this one from the beginning. So the important thing to remember about the viola clef is that middle line is middle C. So if you look at the middle line on this clef, that's where you're going to find middle C, not bass C or treble C, but middle C. And so if we look at this one, there's a couple of ways that I like to keep myself oriented. First of all, I am noticing that, okay, this is in the key of G here. So I'm sort of noticing, all right, this is my sol, do, and that makes it a lot easier. And then also a really easy one is to find the F sharp, because you can see the line where that is on the key signature. So I know that if I end up on a C sharp, then that's really good. If I know that I ended up there, then I feel very confident that I'm in the right place. So we'll go ahead and start this from the beginning. And so your starting note will be D. It's going to be D, G. Here we go. And I'm on F sharp, so I know I'm in the right place. So this, like a lot of the other activities that involve transposition, really just focusing on the interval structure is definitely the easiest way to do this, and is going to make it a lot simpler to play that through. So focusing on very clear kind of chord-like patterns, again, knowing where is do, where is sol, etc., and then being able to recognize really clearly, well, that's a fourth up, that's a third down, whatever. That's going to make it a lot easier. So I believe that is all we have for this unit. So for your assignment, you will do those vocal warm-ups. You'll do one of the 3 reading exercises, the improvisation on the Baroque style, and one of the 2 harmonizations with the transposition. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything else that you would like to see for this unit, and I'll see you next time.